Look at her. Just look at her. Standing up there at that podium in San Francisco, camera flashes going off in every direction, the entire sports media world waiting for her to say something explosive, something quotable, something that would add fuel to what had already been one of the messiest weeks of drama this wnba season has produced, and Caitlin Clark just stood there and said, "I leave it on the court." That's it. That's the whole answer. No shots fired, no names called, no social media antics, no passive-aggressive commentary dressed up as professionalism. Just a competitor who came to play basketball, stated her intentions clearly, and went and did exactly what she said she was going to do. Welcome to Street Hoops. I'm Dre Fiver, and tonight we are getting into every single layer of this story, the rivalry, the beef, the social media mess, the press conference, the Brandon Payne connection, and everything this rematch meant, because this week in the wnba was absolutely loaded with drama, and it all had one name right at the center of it. Let's start from the beginning, because if you did not see the first Fever Valkyries game last week, you missed one of the more electric wnba regular season games we have seen in recent memory. Indiana was at home at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Caitlin Clark was coming back from a back issue that had kept her out of the previous game, and let me tell you, she did not come back quiet. She returned and had 22 points, 9 assists, and hit 4 3-pointers in a 90-82 Fever win. But the number that is going to matter most in this story is not on the stat sheet. It's a moment in the third quarter. Clark dribbles off a high ball screen, pulls up from the logo way behind the three-point line, a shot that has absolutely no business going in at that angle with that level of difficulty, and drills it. Cold-blooded, right in Tiffany Hayes' face. And the moment that shot splashed through the net, Caitlin Clark said something. She said something directly to Hayes. The two of them were essentially chest to chest, and the words were clearly not congratulatory. Lip readers on social media went to work immediately. The clip went viral within the hour. Now at that point in the game, this was just two competitors going at it. Trash talk happens. Physical play happens. That is basketball. Clark has never been a passive star. She competes with edge, she competes with fire, and she makes no apologies for it. And for a few hours after that game, the story was exactly what it should have been. A great regular season win, a dominant individual performance from Clark, and a glimpse of what looks like a genuine developing rivalry between these two franchises. That was the story, and it was a good story. But then Tiffany Hayes had to go and make it something else entirely. Let's talk about what Hayes did after the final buzzer, because this is where the narrative jumped off the rails and turned into something the entire sports world was debating for a week straight. Hayes, heading into her post-game press conference, was caught on a hot microphone before she even sat down. She was heard saying, and I am paraphrasing here to keep it clean, that the officials were never going to start calling fouls on Clark, and that if they did, she would never get to play the game. Now, in the heat of a competitive loss, right off the floor, emotions running high, I can understand a player having that feeling. I do not agree with it, but I understand where it comes from in the moment. What you cannot do as a professional is let those emotions carry you off the court and onto the internet. Because that is exactly what happened next. After the game, Hayes got on social media and started engaging with fans in ways that raised eyebrows fast. She was liking posts, she was replying to comments, she was keeping the fire alive online rather than letting it die the way every experienced professional in sports knows it should. And then it escalated to a level that should never have been reached. A fan posted a comment that vaguely referenced violence toward Caitlin Clark. The post suggested, and again I am being careful with my words here, that certain people could be called upon to handle things. Hayes responded to that post with a laughing emoji and the words "that's real." That is the moment when this stopped being basketball drama and became something genuinely problematic. Let me be very direct about this because I want there to be zero ambiguity in how Street Hoops covers this. Clark was never explicitly named in that fan's post, but the context of when it appeared, who Hayes was engaging with, and what they were discussing made the implication unmistakable to everybody who saw it, and the reaction was immediate and intense. Sports media was all over it. Fans were calling for league action. Longtime wnba observers, people who cover this sport with nuance and care, were saying this had crossed a line. Rival fans, neutral observers, people who have no particular attachment to Caitlin Clark or the Indiana Fever, all of them were looking at this the same way. You cannot engage positively with content that suggests any form of harm to another player. You just cannot do it. It does not matter if it was a joke. It does not matter if you were just having fun with the comments. The second you put your name next to that content, you own it. Dre's personal opinion? Tiffany Hayes is a veteran basketball player who knows exactly how big this stage is. She knows exactly how much attention this Fever Valkyries rivalry generates. She knows exactly what happens when a screenshot goes viral in the modern sports media environment. So the idea that this was just an innocent mistake, just a lighthearted exchange that got taken out of context, I don't buy it. I think Hayes was angry after the loss. I think she was still stewing about the Clark confrontation, and I think she let those emotions drive decisions online that she would not have made if she had taken 20 minutes to breathe before picking up her phone. That is a character lesson, not just a PR lesson. Know the difference. Now here is where the story becomes genuinely fascinating from a narrative standpoint. Because the wnba ran all week with this drama building toward Thursday night's rematch at Chase Center in San Francisco, and then Hayes herself had the audacity to walk up to a microphone before the game and essentially act like it was no big deal. In a pre-game press availability, Hayes said it was just a little chirping, that Clark made a play and chirped, and that it should have ended there. Sir, ma'am. Tiffany, with all due respect, you were the one who kept it alive. You were the one who took it from the court to the press conference microphone. You were the one who took it from the press conference to social media. And now you want to come out here and tell us it was just chirping? That is a remarkable level of revisionist history, and I am not accepting delivery on that package. Meanwhile, and here is the contrast that I want to sit in for a moment, Caitlin Clark went to a San Francisco Giants game on Wednesday afternoon. 2 days before the rematch, she got to Oracle Park late because the Fever had an early morning practice, ended up in the second row, soaked up 65-degree California sunshine right there on the bay, and talked about how it might be one of the best ballparks in America. She was relaxed, she was present, she was not on social media manufacturing drama or keeping a beef alive. She had moved on completely and was just enjoying being a 24-year-old professional athlete in a beautiful city the day before a big game. That detail matters because it tells you everything about the mental approach of these two players heading into Thursday night. One of them was calm, focused, and living in the moment. The other one had spent a week adding kindling to a fire they complained everyone else was burning. But let me give you what I think is the most underreported element of this entire Clark Hayes storyline, and it connects to a much bigger picture about who Caitlin Clark is becoming as a basketball player right now in 2026. Because in her pregame press conference, Clark did not just address Hayes. She talked about Brandon Payne. And that conversation deserves its own moment on this platform because it is genuinely significant to understanding why this version of Clark might be the most dangerous she has ever been. Brandon Payne is Stephen Curry's personal skills trainer. If you follow the NBA at any level, you know what that name means. Payne is the architect behind the offensive development of the most lethal and influential three-point shooter the professional basketball world has ever seen. His entire training philosophy is built around game speed repetitions, around challenging a player's mind rather than just their body, around creating situations in practice that replicate the cognitive demands of actual gameplay at the highest level. Clark said in her press conference that she knew Payne worked with Steph, that she loves Steph's game, and that she went looking for creative ways to make herself better coming off an injury-shortened season where she only appeared in 13 games in 2025. She was not looking for a harder workout, she was looking for a smarter one. And here is why that matters so much right now. Clark came into 2026 averaging career highs across the board, nearly 24 points a game, 9 assists a game, career best shooting splits in multiple categories. This is what she looks like after an entire offseason of working directly under the man who shaped the mind of Stephen Curry. Payne himself has described Clark's shooting mechanics in detail, highlighting her compact release, her tight repeatable form, and the way she shoots through her core and wrist rather than muscling the ball up. He said she lives in her work, that the confidence you see in her shot is not an accident, it is the product of someone who puts in the kind of time and detail that most players only talk about. And now those mechanics have been sharpened by one of the most respected skills development minds in the entire sport. Whatever Tiffany Hayes thought she was going to see on Thursday night at Chase Center, she was going to see someone who had spent months specifically refining the exact skills Hayes spent a week publicly questioning. Dre's personal opinion? This off-season connection to Payne is one of the most underrated wnba storylines of the entire season, and nobody is giving it the attention it deserves. This is not just a fun celebrity training crossover. This is a 3-year professional athlete who has already broken multiple all-time records, who already operates at a historic level, who looked at her own game coming off a difficult injury year and said, I want to get better. I want to find new ways to challenge myself. I want to work with the people who are shaping the best players in the world. That mindset is what separates good players from great ones, and the results are showing up in the stat lines every single night. Now let's talk about the actual rematch, because the Fever ultimately lost this game 90-88, and that outcome still has me in my feelings. Clark finished with 16 points and 6 assists. She went 3 for 12 from the field, and the Chase Center crowd made their feelings about number 22 very, very clear from the opening tip, booing her every single time she touched the basketball, creating the kind of hostile road environment that tests a player's composure and mental fortitude in ways that a comfortable home arena never will. And yet, right in the middle of all of that noise, with the crowd against her and the shots not falling cleanly, Caitlin Clark still became the fastest player in wnba history to reach 500 career assists, hitting that mark in just 59 games, obliterating the previous record held by Sue Bird, who needed 82 games to get there. She made history in a stadium full of people booing her. Let that land. There were 4 turnovers late that opened the door for Golden State to hold on. There was a final possession where the ball ended up in the wrong hands with the game on the line, and the Fever left San Francisco without the win. And I have said my piece about the coaching decisions and the offensive execution in our previous episode, so I will not relitigate all of that tonight. What I will say is the game result does not change the story of who Caitlin Clark is and what this week revealed about her character. She walked into a stadium full of hostile fans the week after one of her direct opponents spent 7 days generating social media controversy around a rivalry with her. She had reporters asking her about bad blood and beef and whether things were going to escalate. She was expected to say something spicy, something quotable, something that would add oxygen to a fire that had been burning for a week, and instead she said, "I leave it on the court. I don't have bad blood with anyone in this league. It's just competitive fire." And then she went out and made an all-time record happen in the same building where the crowd was booing her name. That is the whole story. That is the character study. Every person who has spent this week focused on Tiffany Hayes' social media activity should zoom out and look at what the player at the center of all of this actually did in response to all of it. She went to a baseball game. She talked about her trainer. She broke a record. She competed. That is what a superstar does with drama. They do not engage with it. They do not escalate it. They absorb it, they channel it, and then they go do something historic on a basketball court while everyone else is still talking. Tiffany Hayes is going to have to look at this week and decide what kind of player and professional she wants to be. There is a version of this rivalry that is great for the wnba 2 fierce competitors who bring out the best and the most physical version of each other every time they share a court. That is compelling basketball. That is the kind of story this league needs as it continues to grow its audience. But that version of the story only works if it stays on the court where it belongs. The moment it goes onto social media and starts brushing up against conversations about harm and violence, even in a vague way, even under the umbrella of a joke, it stops being a basketball story and starts being a liability for the player, for the team, for the league. The wnba is in a moment right now where its visibility has never been higher. Caitlin Clark is the engine driving a significant portion of that visibility, and the people around her opponents, coaches, teammates, league officials, all of them have an obligation to match the level of professionalism she consistently demonstrates. Because she is going to keep making records. She is going to keep hitting logo threes in people's faces. She is going to keep walking into hostile arenas and performing at a historical level. That is simply who she is. The only question is whether everyone else in this league will rise to meet that standard, or whether they will spend their energy doing everything except focusing on basketball. I already know which side of that line Caitlin Clark is on. This week proved it beyond any reasonable debate. That is street hoops. That is the truth with zero filter and zero apologies. If you locked in this week and watched this whole story unfold and felt every single thing I just described, I need you to slam that like button right now, because this content does not create itself. Drop your hottest take in the comments below. Did the league handle the Hayes situation correctly? And do you think this rivalry makes the wnba better, or does it cross a line? I want every one of your opinions down there. And if you are new to the channel and you want sports coverage that treats you like an intelligent adult who can handle the real conversation, subscribe right now, because we are here every single time the story gets complicated. I'm Dre Fiver. See you next time. Stay locked in.